From deep in the Burbank Media District, it's time for another edition of My Burbank Talks, presented by the staff of My Burbank. Now, let's see what's on today's agenda as we join our program.
Hello, everybody. Craig Sherwood here with you once again, along with Ross Benson. They can't hear you, Ross.
Oh, that's right, boy.
So people on the podcast, they can't hear you.
Good evening.
Well, we're here once again. We're doing our new Ask the Mayor shows, and we have a new mayor in Burbank, that being Nick Schultz. Mayor Schultz, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you both for having me. Be sure to call me Nick, please.
And not late for dinner.
Yeah, don't call me late for dinner.
Yes.
I do enjoy dinner.
Boy, don't we all?
Maybe the next show we'll take it on the road and go to Bob's and get a round of burgers on me.
Yeah, well, we actually have a road podcast set up, which is very interesting.
Oh, we'll have to check that out.
So we're here to do another, once again, we're going to get you every month and ask you a few questions about what's going on, what's relative going on. We're going to talk about, things in Burbank and issues and fun things. But we like to kind of hit you hard with questions and hear what you have to say and what you're allowed to say.
Mm-hmm.
So how's it been the first month? Not on our, this is kind of an off question, but you've been a mayor for the first month now. It's been 1 month since you've been named mayor. So how's that first month been? What is going on that you probably didn't expect or your time crunch, everything? What's that all like?
Yeah, so I got to say out the gate, it has been, even in the first month, the honor and the privilege of a lifetime to serve this community as mayor. There's a lot that I expected, but there's also a lot that I'm still getting used to. So I'll give you an example. We go out to community events. I was at the Martin Luther King Jr. Pancake Breakfast yesterday, sponsored by Burbank Human Relations Council. I was always there as a council member, but now when you're mayor, like, everyone wants to talk to you. They have questions, they have concerns, they want your help with something. And frankly, that's the best part of the job, is being able to be in a position to help people. But I guess, now I kind of see it on the other end of the looking glass. When you are mayor, there's just a higher degree of expectation that you are accessible, that you are there to problem solve. I love it, but I'm still kind of getting used to that mini celebrity-dom that comes.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I know previous mayors, they would go to the market, their wives would send them for a quart of milk and wonder why they were gone for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And you will now find people probably stop you and will ask you, why didn't the street get swept on Monday? Because it was MLK Day. And now you get to answer all those questions. And you're supposed to know the...
Well, and that actually happened probably about a week ago. I was in Mag Park. I was doing some shopping with some friends, and somebody comes up and they're like, "You're Nick Schultz." And I thought, "Oh God, what did I do now?"
You said, "Oh yeah, I am Nick Schultz, aren't I?"
Yeah, I'm like, do I want to be? And they're like, "Okay, you're the mayor of Burbank." Okay, yes, hi, nice to meet you. And they said, "I just really want to say I'm so impressed with what you and the council are doing. Obviously I got my complaints, but look, you guys are really trying, and I just appreciate all of you, your accessibility." But it was just, that was definitely new. Not that it hasn't happened.
That's one of the small paychecks.
Yeah.
That's what call in coaching, where small paychecks, and there'd be somebody that actually praise you,
It's that emotional dividend you get, right? Because you're like, okay, people notice, and they notice that we're trying hard.
Well, I'm curious, because in your other job, your real job, you don't want people to come up and say, "Are you Nick Schultz?"
Not at all.
That's, a lot of people don't, real briefly, share with us.
Yeah.
You are an attorney. You work for the
California Department of Justice.
Okay.
So,
and you're in a specialty.
Yeah.
So give us a drop of
just a drop. Okay. So I work for all of you as a Deputy Attorney General for the California Department of Justice. I'm in the Special Prosecution section, and we investigate and prosecute cases against elected officials for public corruption, against human and labor traffickers, people that are committing fraud, really anything that, and officer-involved shootings. Those are another one that we do. And to your point, Ross, I mean, when I go to court and I bring a case, yes, I'm standing in front of a jury. I want to be persuasive. I want to be convincing. But generally speaking, we're not really trained to be the center of attention. We are behind the scenes. We're working hard. We're investigating. We do a lot of the work that the public simply doesn't know about, or even if they do, it goes unnoticed. This time on council, and especially now as mayor, it has been a little bit of a fish out of water experience for me, because now you are the center of attention, for good or bad, right? People, they want to come to you with compliments or complaints, and they expect you to have the answer to everything. And I think that has been the, I guess I would say, like, the biggest learning curve in the first month. But I've had a great team at the city around me.
Well, I don't think we've had an attorney sit on council.
No, it's funny. Is most of the people in Washington are all attorneys.
Right.
Even Adam Schiff, he's an attorney.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but it's in fact, the guy running, we're going to have on our podcast soon, he's an attorney also. And, it seems to go. But so I know one of your, I wouldn't call it a pet peeve. I'd call it one of your things you're trying to work on is about human trafficking with, trying to get that brought to the city council and have that discussed. So is this where that came from? Your experience with that, working in that job?
Yeah. So one of the cases that I give a little background here for folks listening in, one of the probably highest profile cases that I have worked on in my time at the DOJ was the Nason Joaquin Garcia case. This was a case that you may have read about or heard about in the LA Times or other news sources. Mr. Garcia was and still is the leader of a church based out of Guadalajara, Mexico.
I do know the case. You're right.
La Luz del Mundo, Light of the World.
Right.
And our office investigated and ultimately successfully prosecuted him for crimes committed against children, which are really, really unspeakable, but obviously human trafficking, coerced sexual conduct, things that, we could get into another time, but let's not. But the point is that I've had some exposure to that. And then I would say the other source of inspiration for needing to do more has been one of our really valued members of the community, Gloria Salas, who we all know is very passionate about this issue. And it was a conversation her and I had maybe a year ago at this point, but we were looking closely at the law. State law requires that local jurisdictions, certain establishments, massage parlors, things like that, have to post a human trafficking notice on there. Something to the effect of, if you or someone you know or someone you suspect is a victim of human trafficking, call this number, here are the signs. But state law doesn't really codify who enforces that or what the financial penalty is. There really isn't an enforcement measure if someone's failing to comply with that requirement. And so as Gloria and I talked about it, and we also met with Jamie Keyser-Thomas from the chamber, we started thinking maybe there's something we could do locally to, to educate our businesses that this is a problem underneath all of our noses. It's present in this community as it is elsewhere, and that our businesses of every kind can and should do more, and that we should be, as a city, ensuring that if they're not, and if they're failing to take educational or remedial action, then we are enforcing it in some way.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've been in a restroom in a synagogue here in Burbank, one of them, and inside the men's room, because it can happen male or female.
Absolutely.
There is a sticker on the back of the door that says, "Are you uncomfortable, or do you need," and it gives a number. And you don't see that. You walk into Bob's, you don't see that.
Right.
But you think of a great way to communicate that. If somebody needs to run to the restroom, nobody would know what they're doing in there.
Exactly.
They're a trafficker or so forth. And
I'll suggest this. You can go farther. I think what he says is a great idea, because everybody uses restrooms and everything else. And having let's face it, Burbank that can't make policy. They can't. We tried to stop nuclear weapons a couple weeks ago, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous and a waste of time. If you're going to do this, which I think everybody's for this, we need to actually do something. Why not have a BMC code saying on the back of every restroom door, we're going to have a sign saying, "Do you feel threatened?" and there's a phone number. And right. I mean, that's something we could actually have businesses do. We could take an action besides, recommending to Sacramento they do something, but we can also take an action here too. Instead of just having, here's a proclamation, no more nuclear weapons, no more, no more drilling off California's coast, or things that we have no business getting into. We're not doing anything about it. We're just saying we are.
I think publicizing. I mean, there are a million ways to get that number out there. If somebody
Yeah.
needs it, you don't see it everywhere. You don't know where to,
That's
and
right.
there's a lot of trust issues and so forth that go with that, who you're reporting it to and so forth. But yeah, on the back of a police car on the bumper, want a job, and it gives Burbank Police. On the right side, are you being trafficked? People driving down the street.
Absolutely.
You don't see it anywhere.
Well, I'd say in a restroom where somebody's private, they got their phone with them, and somebody's waiting outside for them, but yet they got a private, and there's a number they can call right there. So
Absolutely.
I thought it was a good idea. I mean, holy cow, Ross!
I'll be happy when if I see it on more restroom
there you go.
doors, because I use a lot of restrooms.
That's right.
Well, let's kind of get into some of our questions here.
Sure.
Thank you for giving us a little background.
Yeah, no, I think it's very. We could actually talk to you probably a whole show just about
probably could.
About what's going on. I mean,
well,
I get the Attorney General's newsletter every Sunday night.
Oh yeah, same here.
And I always kind of take a look at it, see what's going on, and always see if your name's in it somewhere.
I will just say there have been a few times that my cases have been in that newsletter, but we are not the center of the story. If you read anyone's name, it's Attorney General Rob Bonta, and proud to serve in that capacity. But.
And I think also we should know that there is an officer-involved shooting.
Yeah.
In Burbank. You're not involved in anything in LA County. You're more involved in the ones that are up north, correct?
That is a great question. So if there was one officer involved shooting here in Burbank, I'm conflicted off of that at the Department of Justice. So I know no more than any of you. However, I do handle officer-involved shooting cases in Los Angeles County involving the sheriff's department or other jurisdictions, other cities that are not in Burbank. Oh yeah, it's.
Well, I'm just curious when I guess they won't call you on Tuesday. You're on call for
right.
Certain, because there are almost every day now.
Yeah.
There's some officer-involved shooting, but
that's right.
You guys are probably pretty busy.
We're pretty busy, and yes. So when you are on call, typically they put a couple attorneys on call, and I'm always very good about communicating my schedule. I've been on that rotation since the program started, and I have maybe 4 OIS shootings, which sounds like a lot, but in the couple of years now the program has been going, there have been times I've been on call and I haven't gotten any call. There have been a couple times where it's come up, but thankfully it's never been an issue while on council. And in this year as mayor, I am taking a step back in my day job capacity because I obviously want to do this job well. I want to do it right.
Well, I can tell you from a previous mayor, Gary Brick, who owned a restaurant and at the time was married, and Shelley ran the restaurant, because you'll find, and as you know, between ribbon cuttings and inviting guests from, our sister city,
Incheon, South Korea,
all the things that you're going to
South Korea. I told you South Korea,
and all the things that you have to do.
Yeah,
you're busy, and a lot of people don't watch council. They don't know a lot about you. You're married, you live in Burbank.
Yeah,
you have 2 kids. Your wife is also an attorney.
Yeah.
So who makes decisions in the house?
So I live by the mantra, happy wife, happy life. My wife is in charge. But no, one thing that you're getting at, Ross, which I am excited to share, because I get it all the time. Number one question for me specifically is, how do you do it all? So there are a couple tricks and tips that I have that I'll share. First of all, when you only sleep from about 1 to 6 a.m., that helps. That gives you 19 hours a day to program. I also have to say I have an incredible partner at home who is gracious and really, like, even right now while we're recording this, she's there, she's feeding the kids dinner and getting them ready for bed, and I'll help put it down. I could not do what I do without Allie, and that is a testament to her love and her commitment to the community. The other thing I would say is my day is scheduled out to the max. So I mean, from 6 to 8 a.m., there isn't a 10-minute increment that isn't color-coded on my calendar where I haven't dedicated time to respond to emails or to go to city hall for this meeting. Or of course I have my day job too. But that has been the key to success for me. It's organization. I don't have a lot of, I would say if you look at my calendar in general, you're pretty challenged to find 15 minutes of free time. Everything is scheduled to the max, and I'm sort of able to cheat a little bit because I have the youth and the vigor and the energy to be able to push through and do that. And I know I can't do it forever, but right now I definitely feel up to the task.
Well, it's Nice to know a little more about you. And like I said, not everybody knew that your wife was an attorney, and you have 2 girls, 2 kids.
Yeah, so a little bit about them. Allie works at NBC Universal. She's an attorney, and she works on several shows that folks might find popular, including Chicago Med for those who like to watch the Chicago series. We have our daughter Ella, who's going to be 3 in April, and then our son Aiden, who just turned 1 in October. And I got to tell you, when I'm not busy at city events or at City Hall, my favorite thing to do, we all walk over to Johnny Carson Park as a family, and we just love going on the swings.
Yeah, don't miss that time. That's
Well, that's it.
Being a coach for 40 years, a lot of my coaching, I have to go spend time with my family. I can't do this anymore. Don't
Not at all.
And by the way, just tell everybody, when you see Nick out and around town, he is the mayor of Burbank, but he doesn't have any special powers. He can't do things by himself.
Correct.
He's only one of 5 voices. Okay, so I think people in Burbank all think, oh, he's the mayor. It's like, big time mayors in cities, they can do this and that. Really can't. Yeah. But you're going to listen to everybody and try to get them help and everything else. But you can't make singular decisions.
Not at all.
So people need to. I don't think people realize that in Burbank. We're a little bit different than other cities.
Well, and Craig, to that point, I know we have a bunch of questions we're going to get through, but what I think you've hinted at, which is really another fantastic question, is what is the role of mayor? And I can at least give you the perspective of Nick Schultz, the new mayor, newly minted mayor of Burbank. We are not a large city mayor's office, right? I am not Karen Bass. I am not Eric Garcetti. But the mayor does have incredible ceremonial significance and sway. And I think that if you're looking at how to do this job effectively, what you should be, hopefully, is the face of the city, the voice of the city, and hopefully a unifying one at that. Not that everyone's going to agree with the votes that you take or every belief that you hold, but I like to think that a good mayor is someone who manages a team very well, who understands that you have 4 colleagues, all very capable and competent with their own ideas, and your goal, working with the city manager and the city clerk, is to try to guide everybody towards one unifying vision, one direction for the city. We might disagree on how to get there, but I would dare to say that we probably all want a safe community, a community that's affordable, that is walkable, bikeable, sustainable. If we can agree on those common goals of where we want to take Burbank, then I think the mayor's job is to facilitate that conversation. And then we can have the debate and agree and disagree on what's the best strategy to get there.
I think your council decorum's been a lot. I like Constantine. He's a good guy. But I didn't like when he used to call people by their last names. I always thought that was a little bit.
Oh, you mean just saying okay, got it.
I always said, like
Sherwood or something.
Yeah, everybody there is there because they've earned their right to be there, and they should have the respect that meeting deserves, I think, So that's how I think just calling people their last name in a meeting like that wasn't really professional to me. It was just kind of demeaning.
Well, I'll tell you, the way I'm going to handle it, Craig, because I've only had one meeting now.
And I thought you did very well.
Well, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, he finished the meeting, but 9:47.
Yes,
there were only 2 things on the.
And we'll talk about that a little bit later too.
Absolutely. But I will say this. Everyone who comes to public comment should be heard. You're right. They should be treated with respect. Sometimes people want a response or an answer that we can't give because that's not the right.
They don't understand how the Brown Act works and everything else.
But we should not do some of the things that I've seen the LA City Council do. You'll see them getting up, talking to each other, grabbing a Coke, going to the bathroom. One thing I really pride ourselves on is our council, like if you watch us, we sit there. We try to maintain eye contact. We listen to every comment, and you hear pretty detailed response from my colleagues. They'll try to respond as best they can, and I think that shows the level of commitment from this council to our community.
Well, it's funny you say that because you all of you have taken some, to me, what I call abuse. Even now you're sitting in that seat. I've been around the city for a long time, shooting pictures now 50 years. I've seen a lot of councils up there. There's some decorum when you go into city council. We go back to the days of Jules Kemet and Mel Perlich, who would have a sign and they'd pick it in front of City Hall
before the meeting. Yeah,
and now everybody has the First Amendment,
right?
And they get up there, and I've heard people unleash on you.
Oh yeah,
and to me,
Yeah,
there's kids that watch.
There was a phone call that came in, which I couldn't understand for the life of me.
Oh,
but
Tom Raider. That's right.
Yeah, it was just a mean-spirited call. It sounded like they were trying to change their voices. I don't know what it was, but
voice recording software is what I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I just didn't. Anyhow, we won't get into that. So what do you think are some of the largest issues that is going to come up this year in Burbank that you want to tackle?
Well, I'll say this with a caveat that this is just one member of council talking, but it is very much what I wrote in my letter to the editor that you both graciously published last month. But not to rehash the whole thing, but I think there are a few things that are really impacting our community right now. We have an affordability crisis, and we are seeing that, and that cuts across issues of housing and jobs, homelessness. We see, largely speaking, wages remain stagnant while the price of everything is through the roof. Cost of housing is through the roof, and that includes both rents that are on the rise, so the average home sale price is up. I think I saw a statistic the other day. Average home sales price is about $1.3 million for a 3-bed, 2-bath, and that might get you 1,500 square feet, depending on condition of the property. That is beyond reach for so many working people in our community. And Ross, to your point earlier about people should know a little bit more about Nick Schultz, the person, my wife and I are both attorneys. We have 2 very good incomes. We have good, stable jobs. And even then, we can't afford to buy a single family home in this community. We have a nice condominium in the Rancho. I mean, we are very blessed to have been able to save and to afford that. $1.3 million. Think about the down payment. Think about the monthly payment on that.
And the property tax.
The property tax. It is beyond.
If I was on Prop 13 taxes, I couldn't afford to live here.
Yeah. And the sad part about it is that you have people that have grown up in Burbank that know this as their home and they can't afford to stay here. They can't afford to be in the community that their grandparents were in. That to me.
Something I criticized a little bit a few weeks ago in the year-end review or just look at the start was all the new housing that's coming into Burbank. And these projects have 5%, 5 units, 7 units out of 100 or whatever it is that are actually going to be low cost. And I'm going, they talk about trying to make it affordable, but yet they're only having 5 to 7% of their units low cost. Everything else is as high as they can get it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's the problem is that even all the new housing, we need the housing, no doubt, but we're still not making it affordable.
I'm glad you bring that up because, housing is a big issue in this community and everywhere. And what I would add is that, the approach taken, in my view, by Sacramento has been if we build more units of housing, eventually it will alleviate market pressure. That's not totally wrong, but here's the problem. We all know it takes years from entitlement to construction to actually cutting the ribbon, opening the door, and having those units of housing available online. That doesn't do anything for people right now that are dealing with the housing crunch. And I agree with you. A lot of the state legislation that has offered the carrot to developers, streamlined ministerial review, no more discretion for a council to say no, fast tracking the project. We're only requiring in many instances like 10% affordability out of those projects. I think we've left something on the table. And I agree, we should be building more affordable housing. And I will say that one project I'm very excited about is the city's new partnership with the Burbank Housing Corporation, new affordable units that we're going to be putting online on existing properties, really taking advantage of infill ADU construction. That's the kind of intelligent design that we need more of. And we should be welcoming and embracing those truly affordable projects that want to approach our city. But I agree with you. I think we've left a little something on the table, and I think we should be looking at, if you want to avail yourself of this streamlined ministerial review, which has quite a bit of cost savings to it, let's at least make sure that you're adding a truly significant amount of affordable housing.
There's my 10%, but except that one project on Empire is with 7 stories and 140 units, 7 parking places. And you couldn't do a thing because it's 100%.
Yeah, it's 100% affordable. That's right.
That's great, but the infrastructure is going to take a hit. There's nowhere to park your car. They said they go park at Empire Center. That's private property. You can't tell people to go park on private property somewhere.
Well, that's what kind of gets me too is people don't understand the state. It's not our council is saying let's bulldoze this and that and build things. It's coming down that people don't understand the state of California has said you have to build how many?
8,772 units of housing by 2029.
Think of that number,
Or
folks.
what happens?
Well, so we're already in that boat. So I'm glad you asked that, Craig. And then Ross, please after that continue your point because you're on a good track there. So in the last RENA cycle, that's the Regional Housing Needs Assessment, RHNA. Every 8-year cycle, every community, including Burbank, is basically calculated and given a number of housing that we are projected to need and that we need to build. In the last RENA cycle, which ended in 2020 or 2021, I apologize, I can't remember which one, we built a fraction of the couple thousand units of housing that we had to build. When that happens, Senate Bill 35, we've talked a lot about that the last few years in the Rancho, doesn't apply in Glendale because they met their RENA allocation. We didn't. So now we fall under the provisions of Senate Bill 35. So someone can come in and say, I want to build this project and I want to build it on an expedited timeline, and council's not going to be able to say no. And because you didn't build the housing in the prior cycle, I'm now able to take advantage of that benefit. And there are people out there that say, well, proverbially fight back against City Hall, say no to the state. The problem is, you will then be sued proactively by Department of Justice. You will lose because the courts are instructed to inure and give every construction of the statutory language to the benefit of the developer. They're basically going to give all the weight and deference to say yes to housing. And if you continue to thumb your nose at the state, the ultimate end of the trail is that you can lose decertification of your housing element. If that happens, that means the only permits that can go forward are residential. And so all that commercial activity, all those job creating activities here in Burbank, for example, all of a sudden you lose the ability to issue those permits. It can cripple a city's economy. So there, to your point, Ross, and back to you, I know you're on a train, a very good train of thought. A lot of people come to city council very upset with some of these recent decisions. And it's not that they're wrong to be upset or to have questions, but the reality is that the city council is very much in a responsive position because of how the state legislation was created.
Well, yeah, I've seen it. I've read it. People, you read it all the time. People, blame our city council. They don't understand. You're not the ones that, are the cause of it.
We got looped into that one time with Pickwick, and it cost us about $250,000.
Well,
we lost that pretty fast.
Well, that's the thing,
We tried to make the residents happy and fight for them, and we all paid for it.
I know lately you drive around Burbank. For many years, you didn't see any building going on in Burbank. We have now, on Front Street, on First Street, the old Fry's lot, there's a lot of building going on.
There is.
Which means jobs.
Yeah.
And other things, does help the economy. And once they get occupied,
Ross and Craig, I know we have other topics, so we'll get to it. But when we talk about affordability and we talk about housing, if someone's listening to this and they're saying, okay, so what's Nick's vision for Burbank? This is how I see it. First of all, people are rightfully concerned about significant changes to their neighborhood. They've invested in this community, and they have a certain expectation of how the quality of life they're going to have. There are also opportunity sites, is what I would call it, in Burbank that just make too much sense. Like, why don't we have housing there? And I'll give you one concrete example. We are home to North America's largest IKEA location. You both know that. You both also know that the old site that they moved from has sat vacant for years. Now, that is a site that has the capacity to handle more sewage, more water, more electricity, more parking, everything. That is where we should be embracing and saying yes to housing on a site like that. That is where we add that infill housing to meet our regional housing needs assessment and regain some of that local control. And the one other thing I'll say is a lot of people say, of this council and recent councils, don't you care about local control? We do. And I will tell you that in my professional opinion, my educated and informed position, the best way to regain local control is to meet that regional housing needs assessment, meet that target, build that housing. That will be faster and cheaper than trying to do what some of the South Bay cities are doing and fight what I will tell you is a losing fight against the state, and it will cost them a lot of money. Not hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions.
Sounds like it. Let's move on, or we're going to be here until we just start the February show already. Boards and commissions.
Yeah.
one of my things I brought up and somebody people brought up is, well, I'm not sure how many we have, maybe 12, 14, 16 boards, but for some reason we're having 4 or 5 meet on the same day, and 2 or 3 sometimes at the same. In fact, sustainability, which is one of my favorite commissions, because I think they really
Me too.
are trying to do a lot of things. Not only don't we videotape their meetings, but we finally got them in the community services building, and then we booted them out again, back to the recycling center. And I said to myself, what are we, and then there was like 2 other meetings going at the same exact time in the community services building.
Yeah.
And, there's, I know you guys don't work on Fridays. They don't like having meetings on Fridays. But we have 4 days a week, Monday through Thursday. And that's a lot of days of the week that we could split these meetings up and have them on different days of the month even, I mean, be it the third Thursday of every month or the second Thursday of every month. And, so on and so on. Mm-hmm. So why are we still, I think that's things we should be looked at. Do you agree? I mean, people don't have a way to get to all these meetings.
Yeah. So, Craig, you hit it right on the nose, and I know that a couple of my colleagues have mentioned this too. So one really concrete example, and I share your frustration, both of you. So the Transportation Commission and the Sustainable Burbank Commission both meet at the Community Services Building, same date, same time. So
and the Landlord Tenant Commission.
And yeah, I think you're right on that too. Yeah. So I think there was a meeting recently where they were talking about BRT at transportation, and they were talking about the single-use plastics reduction policy.
It's an important thing, very important.
It was something like that. It might not have been those 2 exact issues, but 2 very important issues, same time. And I actually ran into one of our neighbors who was very much in that position. I want to be at both meetings at the same time. So I think you're 100% right. What I can say is that we are looking at how we can avoid some of those conflicts. I would be in favor of moving it so that those 2 commissions are not on the same night and time. Now, there's 2 things we have to do. We do have to factor in our existing commissioners' availability, because we obviously don't want to lose people that are willing to serve. So can we find another night and day and time that would work for all of them, that would not be in conflict with another? And then, the other separate issue, but related, is just our bandwidth, our ability to broadcast and to record all of those meetings.
Well, I was suggest this. So Tuesday nights, when there's no count and the council's dark, there's no other meetings that night. So why not schedule on dark nights if you're doing a year in advance meeting schedule?
Because I think there it comes down to staff.
Well,
the PIO's office runs all that camera work at City Council.
Well, even so, they could have it at the Community Services Building or something. Not, I'm just saying, why not have it on Tuesday night when the council's dark? There's no other meeting that night.
I don't think there would be an issue changing the day and time of the meeting. I think what could be the harder one to lift is we're already kind of, to Ross's point, pretty maxed out in our capacity to televise and record.
Right.
Now, that doesn't mean that there still could be value moving transportation to, say, the City Council chamber, another date, another time. Maybe it's not recorded, but at least people could come down. They could participate. And I think in the long term, hopefully we'll be able to broadcast and televise and record more. That's just going to probably take more investment in terms of staffing, equipment, but it's something that I'm willing to do personally because I see the value in that.
Well, it's funny. You just rang a big bell in my head when you say our PIO office, they do a fantastic job.
Best in the business.
They need 25 more people in that office, or at least 5 more, because people don't realize all the production that they put out.
Oh, yeah.
And you only got 4 or 5 people working that office.
Yeah. You got Jonathan, Mary, Bree, you got Legend.
We
love Legend.
Always throw Legend in there.
But that's it. And they do and there are obviously others who do work behind the scenes too, but there's a finite number of hours each week that they're available. And so we very much have to have the conversation of how we make the most out of the little bit we have. But I know the 3 of us have talked for years now about the importance of transparency, accountability of government. The way that you do that is by shedding a light on what government is doing, including boards and commissions. So in the next budget year, if hypothetically someone came forward and said, if you gave us an extra staff position, we could televise more of this, I'd be in favor of that, because I think that's an investment worth making, and I don't think many people in Burbank would complain.
Well, I think nowadays people want to know.
They do.
And what does PIO stand for? Public information. And, you can't put out.
No.
I mean, there's stuff they could do.
So we want to follow up to that last question a little bit. I think sometimes one of the problems we have are some of our boards, commissions actually, they really don't do anything they have a meeting to have a meeting, which I've seen some say, like infrastructure a couple of times, we have nothing to talk about. We're going to cancel the meeting this month. Well, that's great because there's nothing. Why have a meeting if you don't need to have one? My thing is I would like to see that the council ask all the boards and commissions to send them a report at the end of every year. I think their year ends in May. I think is what it. Yeah, it's the old calendar for the cycle on the boards and commissions. At the end of the cycle, have each board and commission send a report to the council. What did they recommend to the council in the last 12 months? Because that's their job, is recommend and do things, not just, well, we heard a report about this or that, because that doesn't do anything.
Right.
But what did you do to recommend things? What are the things that you're doing to, that are benefiting the city type thing? And I think it'd be nice to have every board and commission, because I think sometimes you could not even have to have a meeting every month of every commission if there's really nothing to discuss, if they don't have an issue to discuss that's important to the city or the council.
Yeah. Well, and Craig, to your point, I think I brought it up once before in a meeting, and I fully support the idea of have every board and commission give an annual report to the council. And there is one commission that does something like that. James Coombs, who's the chair of our police commission, does give a periodic report.
Well, yeah, but that report is, we discussed this, and this. Like this next week, they have a meeting coming. They're going to discuss DUI enforcement in December. They're going to discuss other things, but they get a report. Staff has to prepare the report. Spend a lot of time to, lieutenants have to then give the report, and then they say, "Oh, thank you for the report," and they shuffle it off, and that's it. They don't take any actions. There's no recommendation to go to the council that say, we'd like to see this happen, and here's to the council. This is something we'd like to see. It came to our thing. We talk about radio encryption. It was never brought up to the police commission at any point. It just happened. And that's a policy decision that I think should be brought out in a commission type setting.
That's a fair point.
But it's just, I just don't see that them doing anything. They just meet and have reports made.
Well, and you're hitting on something really critical here, Craig. And I've heard this from our commissioners too. They all want to serve. They're happy to serve, and yet they're looking for more. They're
good people. I'm not against the people at all. I think they all have the best intentions. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing happening. It's just busy work.
Well, I think that there's blame, if you will, to go all the way around. We as a council, I think, can and will do a better job in this year of providing that sort of direction to our commissions. So I will tell you, there's a couple commissions that I have seen do a good job. Not maybe as frequently as I'd like, but I've seen our Transportation Commission, Sustainable Burbank Commission, and on a couple occasions, the Police Commission affirmatively make recommendations to council. We think you should adopt a resolution that does X, Y, Z, or make this policy change. That is what I think we, in our council liaison roles, as you both know, every council member is a liaison to almost every board and commission. We should be carrying that back in their first meeting of this year, and that's what I'll be asking of my colleagues, to let them know, you should be thinking about blind spots. What is the council not doing? What is the council not talking about? What are we not considering? And if you have a suggestion for a policy change we should make, that is mission one for being on our board and commission.
That's what we want, I think, is... when we watch you, we want them to help you, to give you recommendations. You make the decisions, but let them, hash some things out in advance, like sustainability. Absolutely. Sustainability, 100% on, we're doing the single-use plastics. We're talking about, gas blowers, leaf blowers. We're talking about, they're talking about the AstroTurf at Brace Park. Mm-hmm. Amazing thing that they're doing, and sending reports to the council of, in fact, you're supposed to get from sustainability about the wording of the ordinance.
That's right.
They want to change the wording of the ordinance a little bit.
Yeah.
So I couldn't. There's no way to listen to what they said. So I'm just hoping they went well. But I'm sure you'll get a report on that.
Exactly. And I think just to give some concrete examples, Sustainable Burbank is talking about our single-use plastics reduction policy, and then and I know that we'll get to this question later, but transportation is going to be talking about BRT. And to your point, I think that we need to communicate to the commissions, and we should expect of them that they're not just going to talk about it. I mean, that's great, share the information with the public, but the ultimate end goal should be, what are you, as our appointed policy experts, what are you recommending that we do? And obviously, we're going to make our own independent decision, but if either of these commissions make a recommendation, I'm going to give it weight and consideration.
Well, and you also share with the public, but how do they share with the public? Just by having it at their meeting? That's really not sharing with the public. That's just, well, the 45 people watching the meeting will know about it, but there's 100,000 people who don't,
Yeah.
So how are they sharing? That's something you might want to consider. How are they sharing information with the public on these issues?
So one other thing, Craig, because that's a great point. I think that we can help them in part. So you all know, we were talking about it offline, that starting last year, I brought up the idea to Mayor Anthony of having the weekly Mayor's Minute, the quick summary of the council meeting. I think every recommendation from one of our boards and commissions should be included as an attachment to a staff report, or even just be the item that we discuss. And that's going to be not wholly, but on me and the Public Information Office to make sure that we're highlighting that for folks. Hey, the Transportation Commission, the Sustainable Burbank Commission, whatever board and commission has recommended that we take this action. Go to our website, read the recommendation for yourself. I mean, we need to do a better job, I think, of pushing that information.
I know we see your tweets online. We always retweet those mayor minutes and stuff, because that's good stuff.
And we will do more of that. I think that our PIO is very up for it.
I think you're right. Again, but you need more people in that office.
We do.
It's there's just so much public information, and I've said it before we went online here. I just don't find our city is that proactive.
No. The face of media continues to change exponentially at a very quick rate.
It
and
does.
I don't, and we need the manpower to keep up with it.
Well, and I will tell you, there's a couple things I'm hoping to accomplish this year. One of them is to change that culture, and I think there's an appetite for it with this council and at City Hall with our staff. We need to be proactive. We need to be pushing the envelope, doing things we haven't historically done. I don't think we're going to solve every issue and achieve perfection this year, but I hope that this year you start to see more of that accessibility, that willingness to think outside the box and try.
I think this council is a lot more media savvy overall, and they understand what social media is, which I think that's been, nothing wrong with it in the past, except they didn't have the experience and they didn't grow up with it.
Right, right.
Well, one of the things at Glendale, I don't know if it's their PIO office.
You said a G word? You said the G word, didn't you?
Wait, what?
I did.
Is that when you hit the toilet thing?
Oh, yeah. we have that for that. I'm sorry. I can't believe we brought that in the mayor's podcast. What are we thinking?
I don't go to Glendale.
Look, we love our neighbors in Glendale, but
yes, we
great
do.
people, but we just don't give a damn about what goes on there.
Well, one of the things that they have in their PIO office, or their, I don't know what they call it over there in Jewel City, but rumor control. And it's somebody that we have, we have the capability. We said it before. We need to put more stuff out and put out the truth.
Well, right now, I think Ross is rumor control on Facebook, aren't you?
yes, he is.
Well, a lot of people say that, it just, I hate reading when people make up stuff about my city, our city, that is not true. And where did you get it? The rumor 2 weeks ago, that Smokehouse
was closing. Yeah. I don't know where that started.
And that should, I jumped on it that quick. A lot of people did. It wasn't true. But I think rumor control, Kmart, it's going to be a prison that the LA County wants to make.
Really?
Make it a temporary jail. And you see stuff like this.
Not on my watch, for the record. Not on my watch.
Where's the guard tower going to be?
Well, it just kind of gets me. And that's, I know it requires another person. We had at one time, when my Burbank started, the PIO office and we were competing of who was putting stuff out. And there's a difference between what my Burbank puts out and what comes out from the city. But I know every department, didn't we see it on the agenda last week? The library looking at their media campaign.
Yeah. But marketing campaign. But,
Marketing.
Talking about their marketing campaign, the library commission,
Okay.
the library board.
Yeah.
They're talking about their marketing. I'm going, what marketing? Yeah, I know we have an associate editor who writes a lot of their things for what's going to Buena Vista for their things, and he said he's frustrated, and it says they don't let me get the word. I mean, I don't understand how they think they're going to market things if they don't put things out. Now they've been using our calendar on our website, which we've been glad to let them use it, and it's a free service.
Mm-hmm.
But marketing is more than just putting out a newsletter out or something.
We are the media
Capital of the world.
And I think we should stand behind that. And I mean, that would mean a lot. It'll take a lot of work, but
Well, and one other thing I'll just mention, guys, because I think you're both spot on here, and you both know this better than I do, frankly. Marketing data will tell you that for someone to really hear information and retain it, to remember it later, you got to see it multiple ways, multiple times. So putting out one tweet about it isn't going to stick. You need to see it in print form. You need to see it on a video, on a reel on Instagram. So that's where I think we can all do a better job on the city level, both on our official accounts, my Mayor Nick Schultz account, and if you haven't already, you can follow me there, but also pushing information out to you guys to help us with My Burbank. We need to repeat ourselves a couple times to really get the correct information out. And Ross, for what it's worth, I know it's one of the things that you and I bond over. We don't agree on everything, but one of my pet peeves is, and I've said it on the dais before, criticize me for the things that I do and say that's fair game. But I know, like, when people, come with misinformation, it can get frustrating, right? Because there's so much of it, and we have to guard against that for the sake of our democracy.
Yeah, we do. And we got some great department heads. And when they sit at that council meeting, that's why they're there. And when you guys turn 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, you guys turned to Patrick. Oh, wasn't it your the day you were sworn in? The Uber drivers.
Yes, we did.
And after 4 or 5 speakers, you guys got Patrick on it that fast.
He was right there.
And
put out the fire. You put the fire. Instead of having 15, 20 people come up and discuss it, you're able to get them help. And I'm not sure what the resolution was, but at least they got listened to by a city official.
That is so critical.
So
okay.
we have some other questions. Let's move on.
Actually, we have one from one of our readers. Most people don't want their names used, but Linda was fine with it. So this is from Linda.
Okay.
And she says, I've heard that the subject of the BRT is coming back to the council on February 13th. If so, will you fight to keep all of 2 lanes of traffic in each direction for all of us?
And put in BRT stands for?
Yeah, BRT, bus
rapid
transit. Right. So basically what they've talked about is either taking away the parking lane and leaving 2 lanes of traffic in each direction and be no parking in front of all the businesses, which will kill them, or to take out 1 lane of traffic like Verdugo, where now private cars will get 1 lane in each direction, and 1 lane is only for a bus, and there's still parking. And I got to be honest, the other day I drove down Olive, and I was thinking about this, and I was looking, and cars are backed up in 2 lanes of traffic from Olive all the way up to on Olive from Buena Vista all the way up to Verdugo.
Oh yeah.
And I'm going, if they took away a lane of traffic, right now you're probably looking at 3 or 4 stoplights to get through that as it is. It would gridlock the city.
Yeah.
So, I mean...
We must have been on all of the same day, because I think I was sitting in that too.
And by the way, you're going all over in the daytime? Raising Cane's has no traffic.
Remarkable, right?
Yeah, McDonald's has all the traffic.
But heaven help you if you go at dinner time.
Yeah, at nighttime, it's a whole different thing. But so BRT is going to be a hot issue coming up. So
It is, and I just want to thank Linda for the question, and I'm going to add just a little bit of context, because most folks probably know what BRT is, but it's possible some might not.
No.
So this is one of the 28 by 2028 projects that Metro, our public transit agency, has pushed forward as like wanting to accomplish in time for the Olympics. So the project would have a series of mixed flow, meaning the bus runs with regular traffic, and dedicated bus lanes between North Hollywood all the way to Pasadena. So the idea is sort of as an alternative to light rail, which, by the way, if money were no object and I could do one project to benefit Los Angeles,
You would put a monorail in Burbank.
not a monorail. I like where you're going though. Underground subway, rail line, right? Like that would, to connect the San Gabriel and the San Fernando valleys. That would be, I mean, billions of dollars. Not probably feasible in my lifetime, but what a project that would be. But I bring that up to say this is kind of an alternative, a more realistic project alternative to that concept. So with that in mind, the prior city council in, gosh, what was it, 2021?
About then, yeah.
About then. So we looked at it and we identified some concerns with the project, which I'm just going to say I don't believe we've really gotten an answer to, from Metro yet. There were concerns about the traffic impacts on the adjacent residential areas. There were one of the things that I found particularly concerning, and I think Councilmember Springer at the time, former Mayor Springer, brought up, was the fact that the original project design contemplated a stop at the top of the Olive Bridge, where you could get off, you could take the elevator down, and you could connect with Metrolink. I mean, it's a beautiful concept. That can't be done right now. We need money for a replacement bridge, and so
Replacement elevator too.
we need to scrap the whole thing, right? And so the idea was we put a stop on Lake, and one of the things that she mentioned that really bothered me is, well, what about those with mobility impairments? I mean, that's a long way to go. So that was something that we put into a comment letter to Metro. Now, the comment letter to Metro, which will be attached as a staff report, essentially said, look, in a nutshell, Burbank wants to be a good neighbor. We support the project in theory, but we have these concerns that need to be addressed. That stop, the replacement bridge, mitigation money and measures for impacts on our residential areas. We also talked about ridership and sort of that being one of the critical.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just saw Metro a week ago. They have this micro mini they have, and it costs you $1 to ride it.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying it costs them $62 for every one person who rides it. Pays $1. They're losing $61 per rider.
Oh wow!
And they're saying now also they're cutting down their routes because they can't get people to use it. So if they're to have a bus system out there, which these micros are great little buses. I wish Burbank Bus would do that instead of having enormous buses. I call enormous limousines for one person. If they can't get people to ride their system for $1, why they got people to jump on all these buses all of a sudden and ride these buses when they can't even, I mean, to me, it's making no sense. People aren't, this is not New York.
Right. We're not.
I mean, this is spread out here. Everybody works in different directions.
Mm-hmm.
So I just, if Metro is having problem with their micro minis, how do they get their buses to have all those people on them and justify, and have there been traffic counts done on Olive?
Yeah.
That to me needs to be, why not a traffic count? You see how many cars are on that street a day?
When this was all originally thought of years ago, way before pandemic, way before COVID, these high rises were full of office workers that, part of the TMO, different ways to get people there. But these office buildings aren't full anymore. And I just last night saw a report where they're saying they really want workers to get back into the offices. That corridor from the San Fernando Valley to Pasadena, I get it. At one time they thought using Chandler. Then they thought about going on the 134. Well, now they've decided to go this route. Will it be used? Are they, or after the Olympics? Oh, it didn't work. Let's repaint the street and go back to what we had.
Yeah. So to Linda's question and the point that you've both made. So the council had its concerns that were communicated to Metro. To the best of my knowledge, at least not directly to the council, I don't think we've received a response to those concerns. Now, it's possible that Metro's position on that, the response on that, is going to be presented to the Transportation Commission, which, by the way, is going to be January 22nd, 5 p.m., Community Services Building. So you can come and listen to the presentation and provide comment there yourself.
Okay.
Now, what I'm hoping to see is that there is some movement from Metro that, look, I would like to avoid the impasse and find a way forward where we can work together. That's my goal.
Can Metro force the city to do this? I mean, these are Burbank streets. Can Metro force the city to take this action, or the city still has the final say?
So I don't, in full candor, I don't know that I have all the information to fully answer that question, but here's my understanding. So in terms of the construction permits, those are things that we can ultimately have the discretion to say no to. The project can still go forward, whether it includes the dedicated lane in Burbank or not. The thing that I don't know is that Metro obviously provides a lot of funding and assistance to us with other projects and other
They
things.
could blackmail us.
There could be consequences for saying no to the project, and that's
I call it blackmail.
right. Well, and that's where without the staff report and that ability to ask these questions of staff in a very public, transparent way, I don't know that I have all of the information, but you're right. That is the position that any transportation commission or council is going to be in, is what's the calculus. And my hope, look, as the figurehead for this city, is to find a way forward. Nobody should want to go to war with Metro. No. But at the same time, we
support Metro. I mean, nobody's against Metro.
Right.
But Olive is the main artery in Burbank.
Absolutely. And our job, and I think that we have done it to this point, we have to continue to do it, is to advocate for the concerns and the needs of our community. And I think that what I have seen here is, we have communicated our concerns. I don't think we've had a lot of great dialogue with Metro or the board, and that's really what we need to jumpstart this conversation. I think we really need to sit down at the table and say, these are our concerns. Nobody wants this project to fail, but we want to see it be successful. We have that shared goal. Here is what we're concerned about in Burbank.
I could see if they did traffic counts, say on Alameda, on Burbank, and on Olive. I bet you by far Olive's going to be twice as much as the other two, and I bet you won't find the traffic on Alameda. And maybe an alternative is to go down Alameda and then make a left and come up Victory or something, But I just think Olive is not that's my opinion. Olive is not the place that this can happen. And it's not because I don't like it. It's because it's just not feasible in the way our society works.
Yeah. And I think, for me, going back to what we were talking about earlier in the prior question, I am no longer the liaison to transportation. However, depending on if they'll both be there, that's a meeting I very much want to go sit and be a fly on the wall for. And I want to listen to the public comment. I want to listen to our staff presentation, which I have not seen yet. So I want to, a lot of these questions you have, I do too. I also want to see the deliberations of our commissioners. Our job is not to rubber stamp their recommendation, but we obviously appointed them. We trust them. I want to hear where they're at. And in the meantime, I believe my role as mayor is to ensure that our concerns are continuing to be communicated to Metro. And if there is a path forward, we've outlined at least one option, right? And that was in our comment letter. Let's see if we can work together, because at the end of the day, we clearly disagree on the best way to make it happen, but I think we all share one goal, and that is we want to move people across large territory, and we would preferably like to do it without them driving their car. Right. So let's just have that conversation about how we can make it work.
I think so. And the Transportation Committee, once again, now here's something where a committee can actually really make a difference and have recommendations and hear things out, and then the council can make final decisions, but at least that's what commissions and are all about, so.
Well, and just one more point. I know we have more questions, but I will say, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it was the Transportation Commission in the first place, way back when, that recommended the council oppose the project, citing a lot of these concerns. So, I know the cast of characters is a little different, but this is not an issue that's new to them. It's an issue that they're very well versed in. They have great staffing to handle.
And I will say, over the years, I have watched the council numerous times listen to the commissions. And they don't just say, okay, well, whatever, we're going to do what we want to do anyway. Not at all. I've heard them talk about what the commissions say and use their recommendations, and sometimes say we're going to send this back to the commissions to even get further information. Yep. So I think you guys work great with them. Yep. They just need to have a purpose.
Exactly. And the final point I'll make on this is that I certainly have my concerns, I have my thoughts, but I wouldn't be doing my job or empowering our commissioners if I didn't say I want them to take this conversation seriously. I look forward to their recommendation. I might agree with it, I might disagree with it, but I think I can safely say the whole community, all of us in this room, everyone listening, is going to be watching that conversation. So my hope is they have a good conversation. And in the meantime, I'm going to be communicating to our counterparts at Metro to see, just to make sure that they are aware of our concerns. And I would very much love a response back.
Very good. Well, thanks for the question, Linda. We appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Linda.
Another question for you is, public comments have changed over the years. How do you feel about the public comment periods? I mean, I know at one time it was 5 minutes back in the day. There was 5 minutes before the meeting and 3 minutes at the end of the meeting. And now we've changed them to 3 minutes oral communications and 3 minutes before the topic. But if you talk about the topic during oral communications, you can't talk about the topic when it comes up. It just seems to be a lot of confusion at times. I've heard talk from some of the council members saying, well, these meetings last too long and we got to somehow shorten this down. So, but we can't, you can't tell people not to talk.
Not at all.
Their one right they have is to address the boards. And I was say, well, you know what, you got 1 minute. Well, I don't, I know we did that a couple times during the Tin Horn days and all that, gave them, cut it down to 1 minute periods because but I don't, is there what's your feeling on public? I know you're very into public comment and you want it to continue, but and any thoughts on this?
Lots of thoughts. I appreciate the question. So, Craig, you have correctly and fairly, criticized this and prior councils and staff about the word of transparency. We all claim to want transparency and accountability. Well, public comment is where you start with making that happen. So what I would say is just a couple things in terms of how we structure public comment. I think 5 minutes is more appropriate. I'm not offended by 3, and we've done it for so long that I get it. Where my concern and where I know we're going to talk about this agenda item in the near future as a council, there's a couple changes I'd like to make. So I'm in favor of the phone-in option. I know there are people that have had concerns about it being abused, and as we saw at the last meeting, a certain Tom Brader.
I would say 5% are really abusive, though.
Oh, if even that. And here's the thing. Yeah, okay, a couple people might abuse it. It's still worth it because it allows people to interact with their government. So I would say the only concern I have is that folks that can't be there physically in person they're able to avail themselves of the general public comment period so they can have their 3 minutes, but we don't offer that same resource for all the reports to council. And out of fairness, look, I know we want to steer people to be there in person. I get it. But to me, if Ross is sick at home and really wanted to come and talk about all these items, he can only have the 3 minutes in general public comment. You're not sick. You come down. You can have the 3 minutes there and 3 minutes on every report item. To me, it's equivalent to treating our citizens differently, and that is not fair. So I would be in favor of...
I never thought of it that way, yeah. That's a good point.
I tried to make that point with the prior council with some of my colleagues, and I know I ran into the roadblock, but I'm hopeful with the new council, they'll be receptive. I'd love to have a phone-in feature for all of our reports to council. I also would be in favor of a return of final orals, even if it was something as simple as just a minute, right? There could be something that was discussed in the meeting before we ask for new agenda items, and you might catch it, and that means I'm able to ask for my new agenda item sooner than rather than having to wait for the following week. The last thing I'll say, and because then I want to hear your guys' feedback on this, in terms of the mayor's prerogative and power on occasion to cut down or limit public comment time. It's not something that I would ever do lightly or take lightly. The only reason that would ever be something I would even remotely consider, and I want to share this for your viewers, for your listeners. Obviously, as the person running the meeting, I have to balance public right of comment and access to the council, but I also have to keep a lookout of each eye at my colleagues and make sure that they're not getting glossy-eyed and not able to actively listen or engage. So I don't have like a firm number in mind, but in the case of Tin Horn Flats, when we were seeing public comment extend 3 hours, at that point,
and they weren't Burbank residents. Let's face it.
Exactly.
And somebody said, I think Nikki, our councilmember Perez, said that, I really don't listen to people who aren't Burbank residents when they come up and talk.
Right.
And I kind of agree with that. And you kind of said, no, that's not how. And I get it.
Totally.
I get it. But, when people call from anywhere else in the country, just, and they don't really care about Burbank.
No.
Yeah, it's I think she made a good. Probably didn't present the way she wanted to present that.
No, I
but I think she made a good point saying, we really want to hear from Burbank people, and we that's people I'm listening to, people I serve,
right.
So
I think Vice Mayor Perez was spot on, and the only thing I just had a slight disagreement on is I'll listen to everybody, but I fully agree with her and you that if I hear from a Burbank resident who's taken the time to come down or call in, I give that great weight in terms of how I'm going to weigh that comment. Someone who, is clearly not from the area or simply hurling insults or hiding their identity. It's not that I'm not going to listen to it. I will. That's my job. It's like in the courtroom. Not going to give a lot of weight to that because I don't find it to be credible.
Well, if when Constantine Anthony was mayor, he would cut the comment down to 1 minute sometimes.
That's a little.
And he did, right? He did. Or 2 minutes. Okay. Well, why couldn't you increase it to 5 minutes? Why can't you increase it if he can decrease it? Why couldn't you just say, tonight we're going to do 5 minutes? I mean, I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying, but why can't it? Doesn't that scale work both ways?
So, no, that is a fantastic question. So there is actually a resolution that was adopted by the prior council that specifically sets public comment at 3 minutes. That was originally done under then Mayor Gable Luddy, I believe.
Right. I remember, yeah.
Yeah, so it's the way it's worded is 3 minutes with the authority of the mayor to reduce from there. It's not necessarily worded the other way to increase it.
That's why we asked the mayor, because he knows.
That's right. But what I will say is this. If I ever... Okay, God forbid, but if we had another Tin Horn Flats or something that I think could be a kettle cooker, something that could really go hours and hours and hours of comment, if I anticipate even the possibility of needing to amend the public comment period from 3 minutes to something else, I would obviously through the PIO contact you guys, contact the leader, take to my social media accounts, and just advertise that is something that I have the power to do and am considering doing because I want the public to be prepared. And I would only do that in the most extreme of situations where I feel like there could be hours upon hours of public comment that could jeopardize the ability of my colleagues to actually, have their wits about them and make a fully informed decision.
Ross, you need to add to this? Or
I do, and it's a pat on your vice mayor's back. I have watched council. I've been to council for a lot of years. When there was a person that came up about this eviction thing and spoke Spanish.
Yes.
And she spoke Spanish.
Yeah.
And then translated what she said.
I thought that was fantastic.
I mean,
it was absolutely fantastic.
First time I've ever seen it.
Yeah.
In all of our council. And we have a lot of Armenians in town. And I think we need to prepare for that. If somebody gets up and is passionate, those people, I get it. I was in that situation. I got evicted. I had a landlord flip a house and kick all of us out several years ago. So I understand when your house gets, when you don't know where you're going to sleep next week.
Nothing more unsettling than that.
Yeah. And she just, I was just.
And usually Spanish people may or may not be, it doesn't mean because they're citizens or not, but they're very intimidated to come to a public meeting to talk and to be able to say what she was able to say and get response in her language. I thought that was amazing. I will say, watching the LA City Council, their prior mayor would say something in English and then translate it into Spanish or whatever. And she can do it. It's a different council. Yeah. We have a different council.
We do.
We're going to get into that at the end here, Ross. So Ross loves to jump ahead for us. We got the last real question. Well, we have a couple of questions.
Sure.
The BMC, Burbank Municipal Code, says the council must meet twice a month. And the last meeting, of course, ended at 9:00. But sometimes you get a few things on the agenda and and then a public hearing and something else all of a sudden. And meetings going to sometimes till 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Which are not, let's face it, nobody's going to have to work on Wednesday morning, wants to be up to 1 o'clock trying to listen to a council meeting.
What do you mean? All those staffers?
Yeah, all those
still have a meeting.
Right. The next
at
morning.
10 a.m.
Yeah.
That's right.
So why can't we just say, you know what? Hey, we're getting kind of jammed up here. Let's add an extra meeting this month and try to get these done by 10 o'clock. I know we have the 11 o'clock rule they put in about 6-7 years ago that we have to vote after, and it's always going to do it, but it's just, why can't we just maybe add a meeting and get people out of there by 10 o'clock at night, and instead of going on 2 huge public, projects or something, So I think it's down the line. We don't, just because it has to be 2 doesn't mean it has to be 2.
Right. Well, and actually, if I can, what you just said, there was one thing I wanted to add to my prior answer about public comment, but you jogged my memory. The other only consideration that I would give to ever amending public comment, it's not just for the well-being of staff and council that needs to be engaged and thinking at a late hour, but the public also has a right to see that conversation and to watch the democratic process unfold, not at 2 a.m., but at a time when people are up at a reasonable hour. So it's all of those things you have to balance. And it's not a decision that I would ever make lightly or without consultation with the city manager and staff and even my colleagues, as we've seen prior mayors do in explaining what I want to do. But as for your point, you are absolutely right. So every year, the city council adopts a proposed meeting schedule. Some weeks, like this week, we don't meet because it's a holiday week. It's short. The way I view it is that is a custom. It's a tradition. It's something we can aspire to do. But if I ever feel that there's a pressing matter, one of the things you asked early on in the show, or you pointed out, was look, it's largely a ceremonial role as mayor. There are a couple things that the mayor has the power to do, and calling for special meetings is one of them.
Okay.
And if I ever felt like there was something that was truly of great importance or urgency or needed to be taken up outside of that meeting process, it's a power that I wouldn't be afraid to exercise. I also think that in terms of setting the agenda, it's not something that the mayor directly plays a role in. It's primarily set by the city manager in consultation with the city clerk, and they're working off of the shared goals, the adopted vision of the council. But the mayor does have some soft power, if you will, influence. And one of the things I have talked to city manager Justin Hess about is having a more paced process throughout this year. I don't want to see 2 or 3 a.m. meetings on the regular. I would rather meet more often, every week if need be, and have our meetings conclude closer to 11 so that people can observe our deliberation and our process. But the other thing I'll say is I'm not in favor of the 11 o'clock rule. I think we should do away with that. I will stay there until 4 a.m. if need be. And even requiring a motion and a vote, in my mind, could lead to abusive process. People,
you can take that out the way they put that in. You really could. I mean, it's that simple. You just vote to take that out.
Consider it done when we talk about it. I mean, I think
it's ridiculous because it's 11 o'clock, so we make the motion. It's like,
yeah,
nobody's going to say no. I mean, it's.
I mean, right now, if nobody makes the motion and it's not adopted, meeting ends. And I could see that if you were wanting to combat anticipated action the council is going to take, there's a way to abuse that process. Yeah. Again, a lot of things were well intended when they were adopted, but times have changed, and it's time that we modernize our procedures to be more modern.
It's archaic a little bit.
Yeah, I agree.
Anything on that, Ross?
No, I've fallen asleep, watched many city council meetings. And in fact, I used to go to council meetings and I'd fall asleep there and I'd hear about it from 5 council members.
Because you snore.
Well, and people look at you and you're out there, zoned out, and I remember. So I now watch it at home.
We can always watch it from the TV in my office.
Well, years ago, before they had a TV down in the rotunda.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There was a feed down in the parks or in the rec room, the break room down in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
And many years ago, I learned that microphone or the speaker down there was live.
It was hot
for everybody. So I would go down there and watch a council meeting. And when they talked between each other, you would hear what's going on.
Everybody had a hot mic down there. It was very interesting.
And you can learn a lot.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Okay, well, that was something that I just thought is, I look at things and it just doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes when you.
Yeah.
It's like, why are we meeting till 2? I mean, and then you got to figure all the staffers, and I'm sure a lot are on salary, but they're still hourly people who are now going to, work in a 15-hour day, and then they got to come back the next morning. They can't take Wednesday off.
Well,
so it's hard for everybody, probably.
I think you're both right. And to your point, Craig, I mean, as we've said, it's ultimately, look, the agenda is ultimately set by the city manager's office. But I think what I hope to do
By
is
the way, shout out to Justin Hess. We all love Justin Hess and think he does a great job and
great city manager. Absolutely.
absolutely.
And I think his new
Assistant city
Assistant
manager.
is gonna
a
be
great
fantastic.
choice also.
I
Yeah.
agree. She is fantastic. We are in very good hands.
Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure
No.
we'll let Justin Hess know that we're not the guys throwing him under the bus like maybe another elected body did.
You know, he is fantastic. Courtney's fantastic. But what I will say is this. I do think the mayor's role, it goes back to that prior question, we can advocate. And so, no, I may not have the strict power of setting the agenda, but I have and will continue to talk to Justin about how we avoid placing too many contentious items on one night so that we can have good, meaningful dialogue. I am not afraid to meet more often than I think our adopted meeting schedule is a great guideline. It's a great benchmark. But if it proves that we need to meet more often, then so be it. We meet more often. And if we do have to stay on rare occasion to 3 a.m. to finish business, we finished business.
I can see it happening maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but those would be 2 or 3 times a year that I think it's needed.
That's right. That's what we sign up for to serve on this council. I mean, we serve you, we serve the public. It's not necessarily going to be easy or convenient, but then don't sign up to do the job.
Well, we've covered a lot of topics tonight, and I say it to people all the time. Our city is run quite well. A couple of years ago, when cities were filing bankruptcy and having problems and so forth, Craig and I always joke, you go to your light switch and you push it on, you're guaranteed the lights are going to come on.
Yep.
If you have trash pickup on Monday, even now it's MLK, Martin Luther King's birthday.
By the way, they came on Christmas Day to my place for trash.
Well,
they were there.
even on that every day.
Yep.
And our city, drive from here and drive out of Burbank, and you will see very quickly.
Yeah.
We don't have the graffiti. We don't have the homeless problems that you see Tent City and so forth.
Yeah.
And people don't realize, easy to get a hold of you.
Oh, yeah.
Easy to get a hold of our council. I mean, your secretary, Sandy George, she is the best.
The gem of Burbank.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
she is.
Well, behind the scenes people don't know about that actually is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we get your calendar, as you know, and how she plays that jigsaw puzzle so well.
Mhm.
And the both offices, most people, in fact, a couple of years ago, they used to do that open house.
Yeah.
Where people could come and see where the mayor's office is and see that it's across from the city manager's office. We haven't done that in several years.
Well, let's make it happen in 2024. I think we just accomplished something tonight.
I
Let's
just
do
think it's for people want to know there's a lot of new people in this city, and you see that gorgeous building up there at 3rd and Olive. Come on, visit. Come into your office and see what it is. See where the other council members are. And if you need to yell across the hall to the city manager, you can.
Yep.
I know they've put in a lot more security things recently, but Craig, when's the last time you were in City Hall?
Last time I was in City Hall to get my passport. That was 3 years ago. And there it was.
Well, and again, that is something not everybody knows where you can get your passport in Burbank.
Yeah.
Yep.
Another fantastic thing that
Shout out to our city clerk, Kimberly Clark.
Was that Mullen? Was it Mullen?
She started it. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
and making the money, the city, quite a bit of money running that.
So I've got one. I know we've gone longer than we should have gone, but I've got one
okay.
last question for you.
Always.
You are kind of, I would say, part of the change in the council. You were there kind of on the old guard, and they were good people, but the thinking was different. Now you're on a totally, basically a new council, younger council, and what's it like working now with this new council?
I will tell you, Craig, it's been really incredible to be in that role of sort of the bridge between the last of the old council and the way we had been a long time, and then on the cusp of this new generation of leadership. I can tell you that whether you agree with all of us or not, we are served by 5 people that really care about this community. And I could say positive things for hours about all of them. I'll start with my vice mayor, Nikki Perez. I mean, born and raised Burbank. No one knows this town inside and out, its people, its needs, its concerns better than Nikki. You look at Zizette. I mean, nobody on this council with more experience, I mean, battle-tested experience in city government than Zizette Mullins. Tamala is like the little Energizer bunny, and I mean that in the best possible way. She has a motor that I've never seen. I mean, she is at every event. She is engaging with people. She has got that drive, and I so credit her for that. And I know Constantine, our former mayor, has gotten his fair share of flack, but I will tell you one thing, and I've said it on the dais, and I'll say it again. I don't agree with all of his ideas and solutions, but the one thing I appreciate is he's always willing to say, well, why don't we do it differently? We've always done it that way, but why is that the right way? He thinks outside the box. Now, would you want 5 Tamalas, 5 Nickis, 5 Zizettes, and so on? Probably not. But as a team, I think we all offer something that's really unique. And I'm just really grateful and blessed to be in that role of trying to be that glue that brings it all together. They all have their strengths. And it's really my job as mayor, I think more than anything this year, is to allow each of them to play to their strengths, to keep them rowing in the same direction and on course. That is what I'm hoping to do. And I got to say, I don't think anyone anywhere has had a better council to work with, better partners in that effort, coupled with Justin and Courtney, Joe McDougall. I mean, the team we have, I don't mean to give the impression Burbank's perfect, but you know, if this is a football team, this is a basketball team, I want this lineup starting every night. I think we're up to take a swing and tackle those big issues.
Well, you know, people, you drive into the city, we have major studios that choose to stay here because of how our city is run and operated. You know, you come in and you see Warner Brothers, you then pass, you know, the Burbank Studios, then you see Disney, Nickelodeon, and I can go on for that next half an hour. And why do they stay here? It's because of how this city is run. A lot of people say that Burbank is Mayberry RFD, but honestly, you know, we have a fantastic police department.
We do.
You dial, I always say, Mike Davis, former chief, said, you dial a 3-digit number, 911, you are guaranteed to see somebody at your front door within 3.5 minutes.
Exactly.
And you can't get that.
No, you can't.
A lot of places.
I've been spending some time outside of Burbank. We'll talk about that another time. I can tell you that is the number one complaint. They don't get a response in under 3 minutes. We do in Burbank because we are so well run.
Well, and that's the thing. And that comes from your city manager and all the, you know, his team, the E-team, as they call it. And I've gotten to see how it works. You know, there's so forth, you know, we have some little problems here and there. Craig and I are just talking about, you know, the end of this month, we're going to see history in Burbank. We're breaking ground for
new airport, the icon.
January 25th.
That's right.
The
you know
icon.
what? That's history. How many people will be able to see, they'll see that building through their whole life.
That's right.
You know, Craig and I remember the Skunk Works, you know, and how things have changed. If people don't realize, if we don't keep up.
Well, it's funny. The Avion project, we were at the groundbreaking, 4 years ago? And it's become a small city in there now.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how fast they developed that. And the major corporations that have now come into Burbank with, you know, Amazon and everybody else. And
that's right.
I mean, I can't believe how fast they built that up because of, you know, and now a new terminal in that area too. That looks beautiful. Well, Ross was telling me the other day that it's going to have, you can walk into the terminal. It's one story.
Yep.
And you can see all 14 gates as soon as you walk in.
It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I got, you probably got it from one of our commissioners who said, when you walk into the new airport, it'll be left and right, but all 14, that's what's there now.
Yep, not an expansion, replacement terminal.
Burbank can never.
We keep finding that term, a new replacement.
Well, it's funny. Last week, one of the major TV were out there reporting on all the cancellations, and they said Burbank International Airport, and I said, "You will never
see that word.
Those planes could land here, but you'll never see international."
No,
but you know that's history.
I agree.
To see that terminal, and when I read, Bud sent it to me. You guys got it. He puts it out what the commission does, and their big thing, it was don't screw it up. A lot of people don't screw it up. There's a lot that went into, you know, doing this new terminal. It's going to be great. It'll be built in a couple of years.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree. And guys, I know as we're wrapping up, I do want to just say one kind of final thought, if I might.
Sure.
I really appreciate both of you extending this invitation. I look forward to being back every single month. And, I just want to say to both of you and to people that'll listen to this later, I don't mean to come across Pollyanna. I know that Burbank has significant challenges, and we're probably going to spend the next couple months diving deep into all of those. But I'm optimistic. I really believe that we have the people and the resources and the capacity and all of the things that are just hard to put words to. I know we can tackle these issues. Burbank is still, bar none, the best place to live, raise a family, work, spend time, play in the Los Angeles area. And I know that that's going to remain the same. And my job as mayor is to be optimistic. And I genuinely am. So we'll dive deep on all these issues.
And after we appreciate you coming in. I mean, no doubt about this. We went a little longer we usually go today, but we had a lot to talk about.
We did.
And kind of get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
And we hit you with issues. We don't, this isn't,
No.
we come at you with what's going, if you want what's going on in Burbank, this is what's going on. This is our today's issues. I'm sure next month when we get together, we'll have a whole new set of issues that are coming up at that point.
We will.
Too. So it never stops, But
that's right.
We appreciate you doing this because I think it's when we started doing podcasts last year, this was kind of one of our goals, is to get information out there in a long form and let people hear from people, So we appreciate it.
It's funny when I'm out and about, and as you know, I'm everywhere in the city, and people come up to me and they tell me they listen to this show or that show, or they're out doing their exercise, listening to, our weekly show. But it's a show like this that people get to learn.
That's right.
Quite a bit more about you, and I think it's just a great medium that we can put out for people. Anybody can listen to a podcast.
That's right.
So I really am grateful that you chose to come in tonight, and I'm looking forward to a great year. Mary, you and I will be together quite a bit.
We will.
We are at ribbon cuttings and groundbreakings and proclamations, and I don't think I have you kissing any pictures of you kissing other babies besides your own yet. But tomorrow there will be something new.
Oh yeah,
and you'll let us know.
I will. I'll let you know tomorrow night.
That is
a little after 8:00.
Oh, wow! I got to go home and look on TV Guide and see what's on tomorrow.
Well, no, I again thank you guys, and I'll just say this, for the community. I hope that they know. I hope you know. Sometimes I know I can be, especially compared to some of my predecessors, a little subdued, very relaxed. It's because I'm really confident. I know we have all the pieces in place to make this a phenomenal year, and I'm so excited to get to work. So I'm going to keep showing up, smiling, confident.
What is the best way that you find? Because I know now with every social media out there and office phone numbers and emails, what do you prefer? Because like you said, you only have so many hours in a day, and you will get back to people. If it's a project that, somebody asks, you have to do your research. 3 a.m, you're not going to do that research. But what do you prefer? Call the council office, email?
Best way to get a hold of you. How would somebody get a hold of you? That's the best way.
So I would say if it's an emergency, you can reach me on my cell phone. The number is 818-806-9392 if it's an emergency, and I'll try to pick up or get back right away. In general, if somebody wants to have a meeting, and I am happy to meet with anyone for as long as they need about any subject. Best way to do that is to reach out via email. My email is N for Nick, N Schultz @burbankca.gov. And I would recommend, to your point, copying.
We'll put that on the screen for people too. And
that would be awesome.
So.
And I would copy Sandy George, sgeorge @burbankca.gov. She manages my calendar. And the reason that email is so helpful is because, as you both know, my schedule is stacked from 6 a.m. to, about 1 a.m. And so Sandy makes sure it's on my calendar. And by the way, that's the other thing we didn't talk about. That's the other way I'm able to do it so much. Sandy's amazing. She's texting me 15 minutes before. Don't forget you have this thing. She is phenomenal. So I assure you, if we have something on the calendar, Sandy will not let me forget.
You shouldn't say that very loud, because in this city of personal assistants and all these studio people and actors who pay millions of dollars a year to their personal assistants, They're going to snatch her up real fast.
She is invaluable. Like we could not replace Sandy George. She's fantastic.
Well, and I will say, again, that's why Burbank is Burbank. We have people that are so dedicated. These city employees.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we have 1,500 to 1,800 city employees, and I'll tell you, they want this city to be the best. They love getting that paycheck.
Yep.
We pay well.
Yep.
You know, we treat them well. And all those things make Burbank Burbank. So
that's right.
Again, I appreciate tonight's show.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for Mayor Nick Schultz and Ross Benson. I'm Craig Sherwood. We will talk to you again next month on February's Ask the Mayor show. Thank you very much for listening.
My Burbank Talks would like to thank all of My Burbank's advertisers for their continued support. Burbank Water and Power, Cusimano Real Estate Group, UME Credit Union, Burbank Chamber of Commerce, Gain Credit Union, Providence St. Joseph Medical Center, Community Chevrolet, Media City Credit Union, UCLA Health, Tequila's Burbank, Logix Credit Union, Hill Street Cafe, Bertain Escobar Wealth Management, and the UPS Store on 3rd Street.